Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. It's Alpha Flight Monday. We are on issue number 6 from January of 1984. Still only 60 cents. Alpha Flight. In what has become sort of a famous issue for some somewhat, maybe comical reasons, Snowblind. A lot of people have accused John Byrne of doing the comic this way to avoid having to draw a lot of backgrounds. And you can see from the cover that it's very, very white because of all the snow. And for all I know, that's true. But I will say this. He makes it work. So let's get into this story. Now, you might remember from issue number 5, we had Puck sort of doing a solo story. We'd ended the little, or at least for the moment, ended the arc of Marina and the Master of the World, and we moved on here. Puck was recovering from his wounds in the hospital. While doing so, he foils a drug ring that's working in the hospital. Now we're going to take a look at Snowbird, learn a little bit more about her. And this is going to have some bigger ramifications in terms of the stories that are going to come in the future. So, and by the way, beware, it's Assistant Editors Month. So don't forget that. Actually, they didn't go too far with that one here. Some of the books, they kind of got a little goofy for Assistant Editors Month. Not too bad in this one. Okay, so, Snowblind. The office of the Chief of Staff, a remote RCMP post, that would be the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Mounties, District of Mackenzie, Northwest Territory, which I don't believe is called Northwest Territory anymore, but it was then. And the fellow behind the desk is saying, "Well, Corporal, I've asked you to explain your repeated unauthorized absences from this post. Is silence your only answer? Begging your pardon, Chief Inspector, but my absences were authorized by your predecessor, Chief Inspector Cranmer." And the guy standing there looks like a sergeant to me. "Wrong thing to say, Anne. Hamilton's after your pretty blonde scalp, and you're just going to aggravate him." John Byrne, of course, is responsible for the story and art here. Michael Higgins lettering, Andy Yankus coloring, Linda Grant editing, Jim Shooter guiding light. And I don't think they're referring to the soap opera there. "I remind you, Corporal Mackenzie, that as revered and well-remembered as Inspector Cranmer may be, he is now dead. I'm in charge of this post now, and I have repeatedly warned you things are going to be run differently around here from now on. But me no buts, Corporal Thompson. I want a full investigation of Mackenzie's actions since joining this post. Until that is completed to my satisfaction, she is to be confined. Understood? Sir, play your little power games while you can, Inspector. One of these days you'll carry the Captain Bligh bit too far." So, the guy here with the large bulging neck fat really reminds me of a character that showed up in some Wooster and Jeeves, the TV episodes, which are some of the best TV episodes of anything ever made. Go find him. Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry. He was sort of this, he was like a British fascist who had a weird thing about vegetables. And if memory serves, he sold lingerie in his day job. At any rate, this guy's a little more rugged looking than him, but I could picture that guy in this role. He's a blowhard, perhaps. And this kind of goes back to the old school superhero thing with, the secret identity that has to be protected. And they're probably not going to keep up with that super long. So the guy, "Yes, sir," and he takes Anne out of the office. "Anne, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry it came to this. Don't apologize, Doug. I'm sure you did everything you could." And so he's leading her to the jail cell where she's to be confined. Meanwhile, some 40 miles north. Mr. Barrow, you don't understand. You've got to stop the drilling. This is an ancient place, a bad place. My people fear it, and with good reason. Look, Tom, you're a good worker, and I respect you, but our seismology shows a big blip that's got to be oil, and we need... But, boss, I don't think that's oil. So they're drilling up north. He's warning them this is a bad place. Obviously Native American. Holy, and so something crazy, like St. Elmo's Fire. Not the movie, I'm assuming. The strange energies dance and crackle about the drill head. Well, the movie actually did have some strange energies dancing and crackling, so maybe that's what they mean. And seconds later, the 15 men who work this site are witness to a gusher like none ever seen before, and it does not stop there. It seems for a long, awful moment as if the destructive forces of the land itself have been released. But this power does not strike from the earth. Rather, it strikes against it, in wave after shattering wave. And at the very heart of destruction, creation begins, a growing energy sphere that draws the crushed and broken rock to itself until, free, after 1,000 years, Kolomaq is free. Kolomaq is one of the great beasts, as we're going to find, and we have dealt with one of them already in this book. Take off, eh? 3, 2, 1, contact. Okay, Guardian arranged for the creation of my Anne McKinsey identity so that I would be more easy to contact should Alpha Flight need me. But Anne McKinsey is fast becoming a liability suddenly. What's that? I sense a mystic field has been breached. Another of the beasts is loose. I must go. As Snowbird. Minutes later, Doug shows up and finds, holy mackerel, there's a hole in the wall. And already 24 miles away, she who was Anne McKinsey cleaves the high summer air. So in minutes, she's manages to go 24 miles. That tells us Snowbird is pretty fast. At just that moment, 1,000 miles or so to the south and east, a more familiar figure cuts across the sky over Ottawa, the nation's capital. Now this is infinitely more like it. It's amazing how easy it is to enjoy playing superhero if I just relax and let myself. For someone who spent the past several months majoring in magnificent gloom, this is a welcome change. Maybe I'm finally getting used to the idea that Department H is gone forever and Alpha Flight is an independent body. So this is sort of where, you're doing a little exposition here, catching people up on what's happened before. Which isn't so bad when you have such gorgeous art to go along with it. And you do really have some gorgeous art here. So Guardian's flying over Ottawa. He's, reminiscing about these things. He gets home. He's making himself something to eat maybe here. And what does he find? A letter that has been propped up on the salt shaker, presumably by Heather. Roxxon. Now what in the world would America's biggest oil company be doing writing to me? In fact, how did they even get my address? Great Scott. Oh, I love that. Great Scott. That's a Superman thing, right? So, what's in the letter? What's in the letter? We don't know. We'll have to wait. And as James Hudson scans some 36 fateful words, hold, beast, let your attack upon the land now end. A flying human. Much then has changed whilst I slumbered fitfully in my earthen prison. Away with you, mortal. My battle is with my ancient enemy. Your foe is the land beast. Your foe is the land beast Tundra, Kolomaq, and his power is long. Oh, okay. I'm reading this really poorly. Your foe is the land beast Tundra. We need a comma right in front of Tundra. Dang assistant editors. Kolomaq, and his power is long since fallen. But you have other, older enemies. Look past my mortal guise, Kolomaq. Look upon my true fires, and see now who it is you face. He's amazed. How can this be? The spirit of Hodiak, the power of Nirvana, but in this mortal form? But if you're truly a child of the gods, you know well my power. Fool it now. Fool it now? That had to be feel it now. Fool it now. Okay, so he unleashes the power of snow against Snowbird. It's maybe not the best plan. And here we get it. We get several panels of nothing but word bubbles and lettering. And so a lot of people have kind of made fun of this. Man, like this is John Byrne just being lazy. I don't know. Maybe he was being lazy. Who knows what kind of deadlines he was working on at the time. But it does also make sense because the whole point is he's just completely blanketed this area with this rushing snow. And she is, in fact, snowblind. She can't see anything. It whips around her like a living thing, a blizzard thicker and colder than any in living memory. And even this child of the gods is taken unawares. Curse me for a novice. Kolomaq commands forces of nature. He is the living embodiment of winter. But he is vulnerable. Like any creature with a physical form, he can be attacked directly. Her human form seems to melt, to flow. But I must be careful. Kolomaq is one of the most savage of the beasts. Until the woman is gone and a great white bear lunges through the storm. Is there a white bear there? There must be a white bear there. It just... we used to do this as kids where you'd like take a blank piece of paper and you'd say, Mom, look what I drew. It's a polar bear in a snowstorm. But John Byrne got paid for it, so God bless him. If I should lose control to the animal bloodlust, all conscious thought fades. What now attacks the thing called Kolomaq is fully and truly a bear. No! The ancient monster has barely time for a startled cry before 1,000 pounds of tooth and claw slams into him. And this also is good because it shows you, the limitations of her power. She can take the form of any of these creatures of the north, but while in the form, she kind of loses her human identity to some degree, and she has to be really careful with that. 2 more blank pages. Look, I love it. I don't care. Anyways, headlong the combatants tumble as trees crack and boulders roll before them. Crack, crash. And suddenly, beneath them, there is nothing but empty air. For a terrible instant, raw panic seizes the falling bear, its animal instincts overpowering all human reason. Then, shriek! Whoomp! The transformation was wrenching. Never before has Snowbird attempted to change from one animal to another without assuming her true form first, and in her blind panic, she had forgotten her human form can also fly. Now, as a great owl, she circles as she struggles to regain control, and the storm rages on. Must regain control of myself. And here we kind of see a little something. He is still alive. The storm centers on the beast. Without him to guide and power it, it would have vanished without a trace. Nothing. I am as good as blind in this. I need the senses of a bat, but that is a creature not of my domain. I cannot take its form. Then, do you grow afraid, godchild? Kolomaq still lives, still hates. Will you not try your small power against me yet again? The voice rumbles up out of the blizzard, colder than the ice itself, marrow freezing. And above, there were 7 great beasts involved in last battle 1,000 years ago. Their endless wars would have destroyed the world had the old gods not sacrificed all to stop them. Tundra rose again, and all of Alpha Flight were hard-pressed to stop him. That was in Alpha Flight number 1. Now, Kolomaq. Can I face him, alone, and emerge victorious? The power of the old gods is mine, but diluted by my human blood. Come, godchild, I am waiting. Enough debate. I must follow the sound of his voice. I must strike, and in my human form. Her cape spread like wings. She swoops. We'll take your word for it, John. And her strength is great indeed. Caught off guard by the unexpected might, Kolomaq staggers, and falls. Her lithe body arcs, and Snowbird circles back. No sound yet. The storm rages on. What is he? Die, godchild. Whist, 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 whist. Oh, he's playing whist. My God, that's genius. No, the ice daggers slash at her like knives of steel. Oh, ice daggers, not a card game. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. I bleed. Such a thing has never happened to me before. To feel my life draining away. Oh, Nelvana, help me. Your daughter fails you and is afraid. The prayer is a hopeless thing. Snowbird's mother is beyond her call, beyond the power to aid. Enough, enough. If my kinship with the old gods is not sufficient, still I am of Alpha Flight. There is a way to defeat the beast, a dangerous way, but I must use it. Kolomaq, she screams. She slices through the storm, circling the monster, taunting. Hear me, old beast. Your powers have faded with your imprisonment. What can you do but threaten without force, enough to make good your threats? You dare speak thus to Kolomaq? Learn now the folly of your words. It is working. The full force of his power the beast now unleashes against the lone girl. The tearing, wrenching, shattering might of 1,000,000 winters rips out, smashing into Snowbird and the cliff face alike. So there's a cliff face there. We now know that. Ugh, Hodiak, grandfather, grant me the strength to bear this until... Grumble. I love that. That's great. The sound is like a legion of brontosaurs moaning in mutual agony. I mean, I assume that's right. I've never heard that. I don't know. And now we get something. Towering above them, the cliff face slips as Kolomaq's storm rips across its base. No. And now we actually get some art. We get the results of this avalanche that he's caused with his powers. It worked. The beast is buried, once again imprisoned in the unbreakable embrace of his ancient foe, the tundra, the Arctic land itself. Hey, are you okay? Bubblegum. Who? Name's Barrow, Ed Barrow. I'm foreman on the drill site. I guess you could say that we let that monster loose. You're Snowbird, aren't you? I've seen pictures. You are correct, Mr. Barrow. You and your men have witnessed a chapter in an old and bitter conflict. Well, we didn't actually witness much of anything in that storm. Is there anything else to be done? Much. The beast must be imprisoned more securely. I suggest you arrange for this whole slide to be sealed with concrete. For myself, there are other matters to concern me. Holy! The mystic healing glow flashes briefly about her, and Snowbird is once again made whole. Now that's a useful power. There is much to consider from this battle. This is the second time a beast has risen in very few months. The ancient barriers grow weaker by the day. Soon, perhaps, my kinsman will also be free. Then God's willing, Snowbird's time on Earth will be done. This points to some really interesting things about this character. God's willing, her time on this earth will be done. So she's not real thrilled about being here. And lately, I think a lot of us can understand that. The Saga of Crystar, Crystal Warrior action figure collection from Rimco. I know they just recently made a new Crystar. The Legends scale. Was it maybe Hasbro? I don't know. Available at participating Kmart, the Saving Place stores. Back in the day, Kmart was sort of a joke among kids, because it was a little downscale. But that's because kids are jerks. Okay. So, backup story. Continuing the origins of Alpha Flight the old ways. So we catch up with Michael II Youngman, Shaman, although he's not Shaman yet in this story. He's out in the wilderness, deep in thought. And he goes back to this cabin. This small cabin has been his home for all the 10 years, a far cry from his comfortable split-level home in suburban Calgary. But that was the house of Dr. Michael II Youngman and his family. Now he lets the stale, heavy air of the cabin enfold him once again, and realizes something far greater than space and time separates him from the man he once was. Michael II Youngman, some called him the best physician in all of Canada, but all his skills could not save the life of the woman he loved. And that death cost him also the love of his only daughter. hating him as only a child can hate, for a promise broken. And piling grief upon grief, he learned that day of the death of his grandfather, the one-time medicine chief, to which the Sakri, or I guess it would be I always wanted to say like Sasri, I always wanted to say Sarsi. Did they misspell it here, or did they? I swear it was Sarsi, not Sakri. Tribe of which Michael was a member. I'm sorry about that, guys. That could just be my old brain breaking. And from his grandfather, 2 days later, came a strange gift. You must not open the bag, Michael. Not until you know it is time. So here we're going through what's happened to him. He lost his wife. He kind of gave up on everything. He's gone out into the wilderness. He was supposed to take over from his grandfather as the medicine chief of this tribe. This medicine bag is a very powerful, magical item. And, he had kind of like neglected those ways. He'd become a doctor, and he lived as just a modern, dude in Canada, in the city. And now he's kind of, all that's fallen apart. And he's sort of trying to get back to what he was, or what he always should have been. He had always scoffed at what he considered his grandfather's foolish mumbo-jumbo, supposed magic that had made him an outcast, a laughingstock, as the Sakri nation marched boldly into the 20th century. The wartime death of Michael's father had served only to make things worse. Now the grandfather expected Michael to follow in the old ways. But even as a child, Michael to Youngman had heard the call of the white man's science, and had rejected his grandfather again and again. Now, after 10 years' hermitage, he fancies he hears another call. And so he finally now is going to open this bag. And what appears? The dry hide wrappings fall away, and a miracle explodes into the dim little hut. Hear me, Michael to Youngman, and do not be afraid. I have waited long upon this mortal plane for you to hear my call. My time now is short, and you have much to learn. But Michael has no ears for the soothing tenor voice. I've gone mad. I knew it would happen all these years alone. This is not madness, grandson. Look at the table. Look at my gift to you. He looks and feels his gorge rise. Even stripped of flesh, the line of cheek and jaw are unmistakable. Michael to Youngman looks upon his grandfather's skull and feels the world grow suddenly small and far away. You can kind of picture how they would film that too. Bullpen bulletins, James Bond 007 role-playing in Her Majesty's Secret Service. I remember those ads from Dragon Magazine, and I always wanted that game, and I finally got it when I was an old guy with lots of money. What savagery is this? That skull has had the flesh boiled from it. I know the signs. Yet the woman brought it to me only days after my grandfather's death. If you are truly his spirit, how could you condone such a thing? It was necessary, grandson. Because of your stubborn refusal to accept the old ways, I conceived this means to delay my passage into the great home. Now, place my skull to one side and take up the medicine bag on which it rests. Open the bag, grandson. Open it, and take out a handful of pine needles. Quickly, every moment wasted is one we can never reclaim, one that may cost you dearly. Still doubting his own sanity, Michael to Youngman obeys. The inside of the bag feels strangely cool and dry, and ultimately empty. This has gone far enough. I don't know if this is madness or some cruel joke, but hold, grandson. Do not look into the bag. You must never look into the bag. Now put aside your doubts. Let the lesson begin. And so now, Michael to Youngman is getting the lessons towards becoming this medicine chief that he always should have had in life from the spirit of his grandfather, who is tied to this place via the skull. Concentrate, O son of my son. Turn away your mind from the paths of the world beyond this room. Look instead inwards. Extend not your thoughts, but your feelings into the medicine bag. Do not think of pine needles. Know them. Touch them. Feel them. Smell them. Know the smoothness of their dark green surface, the clinging stickiness of their tips. Let them feel as real to you as the fabric of the bag against your left hand. Let them be real. And I just got a little Windows security thing that made noise in the middle of my video. Thank you, Windows. At that precise moment, nearly 3,000 miles away, so he does pull out, in fact, the pine needles. At that precise moment, nearly 3,000 miles away, in a certain Greenwich Village house, it is good. Indeed, Stephen Strange, the old ways have passed to Michael Two Youngman at last. He is a wise and powerful man, Ancient One. He will make a great shaman to his people, perhaps the greatest they have ever known. I kind of like how he draws him there. It feels a little bit like the old Ditko version of the character, where it was kind of thin. Let's see if I can bring this a little closer up. I dig that. You know, part of the joy of comics from, well, I guess not just this period, but from this period, is the number of people working on them who were comic fans themselves. But I don't think you could call them fanboys. They were still dedicated to the art. They were dedicated to the story. It wasn't all just an excuse to bring in some weird reference or what have you, or tie everything in little cutesy knots. But, you know, when you look at that image of Doctor Strange, you kind of go, oh, is he doing a Ditko homage there a little bit? Because you know he knows. You know Byrne knows. And he might not have been, but it does come to mind. Next issue. We must leave for a while this origin of Shaman and look to an ancient chapter in an even more ancient conflict. Don't dare miss part 1 of the origin of Snowbird. Let a child be born in 30 days. And here we get, instead of a letters page, we get the bit from our assistant editor, Linda Grant. Denny O'Neill is in a far-off state, leaving me to run the office myself. I was going to use this space to discuss my feelings about this momentous occasion, but I think I'll just enjoy the view instead. Linda Grant. P.S. Our letters page will return next month, and so will Denny. Message in a bottle. Okay. And there's a slightly more modern take on Doctor Strange hawking some Marvel comic books. He knows where his bread is buttered. And Bump and Jump. I kind of remember that game. Okay, and back cover is the Popeye video game, which was actually also pretty cool, pretty fun. I remember that, throwing bottles at him, yeah. So we reach the end of Snowblind. There we go. It takes a minute for it to focus on it. So kind of a famous, or maybe infamous issue. It's so famous, it's infamous. Of the panels that have essentially no art, just words, just the sound effects. I guess it bugs some people. It doesn't bug me. I like it. And you know what? The prose is so nice to me. It works well, and it makes sense in the context of the story. And maybe did it help meet some deadlines? Maybe. So be it. Good issue. We're setting up a major story arc for Alpha Flight that's going to encompass the Great Beasts. If you remember my video for Alpha Flight number 1, where I talk about them defeating Tundra, and I say, oh, they'll never see this guy again. Okay, obviously I'm joking. They're going to see this guy again. And this is wrapped up in Snowbird's origin, which we're going to get in the next issue. And so we also round out Shaman's origin, which is involved in Snowbird's origin. It's like John Byrne thought this stuff through and made a lot of connections. Next issue, we're going to get sort of another solo issue. Not exactly solo, though. Aurora is back, but Northstar isn't sure he's happy about it. All right, so in a week, we will be on Alpha Flight number 7 on Alpha Flight Monday. In the meantime, hey man, did you have Snowblind? What do you think of it? Was Byrne pulling some shenanigans, or does it matter? You like that issue, hate that issue? What do you think of Snowbird? What do you think of Shaman? Love to hear from you about all that good stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like. Maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe share it with a friend if you know somebody who might enjoy these videos. In the meantime, God bless everybody. Try to be kind to one another. Have some fun out there. And, I'll see you again in Dad's Den of Pop Culture.